Hey, legends. I'm going over a bit of a process or framework that I used to use when I have a tough case or I'm trying to upskill myself in a particular area. I think this might be more valuable if you're, say, 0 to 3 years out and you're a new grad. And I'm also super interested in anyone watching this video. What processes or frameworks do you follow when you've got a tough case? Do you have a system that you'll go through or a favorite resource that you use? And the idea of this is to share some of that as well. But this is just a rough process. So let's say I've got shoulder impingement or subacromial pain syndrome. I'll go to Google Scholar and I'll try and find something in the last 5 or 6 years, ideally a systematic review, to give me that starting place that's a zoomed out picture of what the current landscape and all the meta-analysis are saying. So I found one here called this one. This one was good. Specific or general strategy for subacromial impingement syndrome, does it matter? And then this is maybe the first takeaway. Definitely see if you can find one or two higher level, zoomed out, even systematic reviews. I think what's more valuable though is going to the references and picking out 2 to 5 papers that this paper has referenced. You'll start to build a bit of a web for yourself of, okay, these are the authors. This is the main systematic review. This is where they're getting that data. And remember, systematic review is good for a large overview or consensus, but the meta-analyses that are used in that are probably more applicable to the patient or the N=1 in front of you. So go to the references and challenge yourself to pick out 2 to 5 more papers, meta-analysis level, that the systematic review or the higher research has picked, and find those and download those. Read through. The second takeaway is start to create a bit of a content bank for yourself. So you might have a shoulder folder, and then in that you might have it organized by condition. And then you'll have a bank of articles that you're building out. Now, whether you're taking notes or reading or saving it, we want to kind of build a little bit of a cobweb of articles around a particular condition that will help us, that we can lean on in the future and we can build our knowledge. So that's the first thing I do is, like, any condition, I feel like a good starting place is to read 2 to 5 papers, and everyone's different. Some people can do that really fast. Others might take months, but that's okay. I think having a framework to get yourself into the literature is really important. And with the rise of socials, I'm probably seeing that less and less from our grads. So I thought I would speak a little to it here. That was a paper off of the first paper that I showed you. So we want to see if we can download these papers, the full text, and have a really good read through it. And then we start to recognize some of the authors that keep popping up, Cuff and Littlewood. So that's a good thing too. The second step I'll do is I want to think about myotomes and dermatomes. So this is actually going back to anatomy. And this is probably a second area that I'm noticing grads are a little weaker in at the moment. They've just come from uni, yes, and we had those. We tend to have those anatomy modules right at the start of the degree, and then with the rise of the evidence around the specificity of what we do, I think there's also been a thinking or a feeling that your anatomy is less important. And I probably, as I say that, tend to agree with that. Like, your specific anatomical knowledge, we thought maybe 10, 15 years ago you would have to know to get someone better. I don't think that's where we are now, though it can be helpful, particularly for tricky cases, particularly for red flag cases, and particularly if you've got a few differential diagnoses. So again, for that subacromial pain syndrome, shoulder impingement, myotomes and dermatomes. So I know, what else could it be? Is there any nerve thing going on here? Is it referred? And am I in the right myotome and dermatome to be able to give me the clues on what else to look at? So Physiopedia or your favorite anatomy app, and going over, okay, C4, C5 myotome. What weaknesses would I be looking out for? If someone's reporting pain in this area, what should I be testing as far as strength? Dermatomes, so we can see if there is any nerve involvement and skin sensitivity, holding very loosely that our dermatomes are much, much more varied than we think person to person. So there's been some literature around that. The third thing I'll do is, I like physio tutors for this, but I'll remind myself of the special tests from a very biomechanical level. What are the tests that I should be looking at? And more importantly, what is the specificity and sensitivity of these tests? So am I doing the right tests? 2, are some of the tests I learn at uni probably not that specific or sensitive? And the physio tutors videos actually give you the sensitivity and specificities, and they also have the best clusters. So, right, any one test is not that strong, but if we cluster these through, we've got a pretty good idea. So then I would go on to, I've started at the literature, systematic review level, meta-analysis level, myotome, dermatome, and a review of the anatomy. And then I'm looking at the tests, but the extra step there is the specificity and the sensitivity. So physio tutors have some good videos and good review of anatomy as well. And then, I don't know if we're up to the third or fourth, but the last one is I want to get experiential knowledge and opinion knowledge from reliable sources as well that are also referring to the evidence and leaning on their experience. So I start to think about who are the people in this space that I really know, like, and trust, so that, you know, the names that come to mind are Jared Powell, Adam Meekins, Joe Gibson, yeah, people that have written articles and they're in and around the evidence every day for shoulders. So I'll do a quick Google search. This is where I like Physio Network, is they have the research reviews. So not only are you getting the evidence and the articles referred to, but you're getting someone with a lot of experience who's in the evidence as well, and they're reflecting on how they go about treating shoulder impingement. So this is shoulder impingement with Joe Gibson. I'm not sure if that is a research review, that's a blog. And then I guess the good thing here is there'll be marks from that given person, so you'll be able to find a bit more. How to better treat shoulder impingement with Joe. And then I believe I found something from Jared Powell. Yeah, Jared Powell, shoulder impingement. And that's a podcast episode, and he's written blogs. So I hope that was helpful. A little bit of a framework of what I do. So taking the ownership on, knowing that we all have different levels of mentoring, and some of us might have 2 1-hour sessions with a mentor. Some of us might have 1 2-hour CPD with the team once a week. But the level of, I guess, individual responsibility and maybe the framework around that on how you can upskill yourself. And this is not by no means any gold standard. This is just a process that this is how I think about it. If I try to put any structure to it, it's helpful to me to put some structure to it. Systematic review, meta-analysis, anatomy, myotome, dermatome, special tests, sensitivity, specificities, and then blogs, podcasts, opinion pieces from trusted sources. Now this, everything mentioned here, that might be 1 or 2 hours of work a week to get through those 5 steps. And that's only one very small part of the complex system that's the human or the BPS model, right? Like most of this is dealing with anatomy, physiology, dermatomes, myotomes, special tests. That's very biomechanical. This still doesn't go into motivational interviewing, ACT, thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and beliefs. So the last tip here for a grad bringing a case to a mentor or doing a case review is we can tend to still be very biomechanical when we're doing a case review. So I had this shoulder, this was the test, this was their internal and external rotation, this was their muscle power, and that's all very biomechanical lens. I think about moments or asterisks when it comes to the communication. So what were the 2 or 3 key moments in the consult that made your ears prick up or made you kind of take notice? It might have been a word that the patient used. It might have been something that was fear avoidant. It might have been some beliefs. So that's how I try and lean into that part of the consult when I'm doing a case review, is like, what were the 2 or 3 things communication wise, verbally, that the patient said, maybe even non-verbally, where there was that thing that you noticed? And we're all really good at this. We have those moments that we notice things, whether it's a belief, a word, a fear avoidance behavior. They're the things that I really want to know when I'm going through a case review. They're the things I'm listening for as a therapist, and they're the things I'm listening for when I'm mentoring younger therapists. So try to include that. What 2 or 3 things, asterisk signs, or things that made you notice, okay, there's something there that we need to explore together. I hope this was a helpful video. I would love your thoughts on framework, systems, resources. I look forward to reading all the other ways that you could go about doing this.